He's still together. Is Glenn E. Morrow coming?
It's right behind me. No, he's out of town, isn't he?
He's out of town, Tyler. Tyler should be here. Tyler's name is there.
He's downstairs.
Let me go get him.
Yeah, probably.
Time.
Ooh, we're getting old.
He should be here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're going to call
He
the
sits
roll.
right here.
Yeah.
I'll go get him.
Thank you.
Can't believe he's not here.
Off with his head.
Well, we were locked out last
It's
night.
recording. It's already recording.
Okay.
Can you take the roll?
Well, gotta wait for Tyler.
We're waiting for another member.
I will stop. I stopped the recording.
Ready? Good evening. Call to order the Plan Commission, City of Franklin, Thursday, December 21st, 2023, 6 p.m. Regular, please take the roll call. 6:03 p.m. is corrected by City Attorney Jesse Wesolowski.
Mayor Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Hogan is excused. Commissioner Shago.
Here.
Commissioner Haley.
Here.
City Engineer Morrow is absent. Alderwoman Day.
Here.
Commissioner Leon.
Here. Excellent. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to item B, approval of the minutes, approval of the regular meeting minutes from December 7th, 2023. Is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going on to item C, we're going to do this public hearing. So I'll read it. The number 1, C1, administrative review for sign permitting in the Franklin Industrial Park. Request to amend the sign permitting process for the Franklin Industrial Park Plan Development District number 7 by providing for administrative review of sign permits by the Department of City Development staff without the prerequisite of an additional review and approval by the Economic Development Commission, which is the EDC.
Right.
Regular?
Yeah, I have the notice of public hearing to read, and after that, I will provide an introduction of this Plan Development District Amendment. Notice of public hearing, City of Franklin Plan Commission, Thursday, December 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the Common Council Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin, 53132. The applicant is the City of Franklin, the Department of City Development. The area is the Franklin Industrial Park, Plan Development District number 7. The proposal is to amend the sign permitting process for the Franklin Industrial Park, Plan Development District number 7, by providing for administrative review of sign permits by the Department of City Development staff without the prerequisite of an additional review and approval by the Economic Development Commission, EDC. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of Section 622372 of the Wisconsin Statutes and Division 15-90208 of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. A copy of the proposed draft ordinance is available and open for inspection by the public in the Department of City Development at Franklin City Hall. The public is invited to attend the public hearing and to provide input. The proposed draft ordinance is subject to revisions following public hearing and the further consideration by the Plan Commission and the City of Franklin Common Council.
So we going into the presentation at this time, or are we going to in here?
Yeah, I have a presentation.
Thank you.
Brief presentation. So this is a amendment to the Plan Development District number 7, initiated by City Development staff. The purpose is to streamline the review process for signs applications. Currently, the process is 2 steps. First, the applicant will needs to submit a sign review application that goes for staff review and for review by the Economic Development Commission. If the sign review is approved, then the applicants normally apply for a sign permit. So basically, city development staff review each sign application twice, the sign review and the sign permit. The purpose of this amendment is to eliminate the sign review. Staff anticipates to reduce the typical process for a sign from typically 30, 60 days to approximately 2 or 3 weeks. That's the time that normally takes a sign permit without the sign review. This ordinance, the next step, if the Plan Commission recommends approval, is a presentation before the Economic Development Commission and another presentation before the Common Council, meeting dates to be defined. And I would like to add that city staff prepare a similar ordinance to the Plan Development District number 18, that is the business park, just next to the industrial park. And that ordinance was approved last year. So city development staff recommends approval of this Plan Development District amendment. And also there is a motion to determine this Plan Development District amendment to be a major amendment that requires a public hearing. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Seeing none from the commission members, prefer now to open up the hearing. So, Counselor?
Perhaps the plan commission should determine that this is a measure of requiring, I dare say, since it's already scheduled, public hearing would be held.
Correct.
But that's one of the, per the Unified Development motion.
Well, I'd like to see, since we're here, and we can open up the hearing, close the hearing, and make it official. So with that, open up public hearing at this time. Anybody wishing to speak on this matter, please come approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. Anyone? Seeing no one, close the public hearing at this time. Any further questions on this? Would you like to entertain the motion?
Two motions. First motion is a motion to determine the proposed amendment to be a Plan Development District number 7 to be a major amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Second motion, a motion to recommend approval of an ordinance to amend Plan Development District number 7 as it pertains to the administration of sign permits.
So moved.
Second.
You got a first and a second. Alderwoman Day. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to C2, Hiller Ford Special Use Amendment. Request for an amendment to a special use permit for a proposed building addition of a parts warehouse use at the west end of the existing shop building located at 6455 South 108th Street. Tax key number 704-1014-000. Mr. Martinez.
I will read the public hearing notice and then provide the presentation. Notice of public hearing, City of Franklin Plan Commission, Thursday, December 21st, 2023, at the Common Council Chambers at Franklin City Hall, 9229 West Loomis Road, Franklin, Wisconsin. Applicant, Hiller Ford Inc. and Dealership Properties Inc., property owner. Subject property is located at 6455 South 108th Street, Zone N1 Limited Industrial District and C1 Conservancy District. Proposal, an application for an amendment to a special use permit for a proposed Hiller Ford building addition of a parts warehouse in the existing inventory parking lot at the west end of the existing shop building. With a 15,360 square foot footprint, which would include overhead doors on the west and north facades, as well as a 3-dock semi-truck delivery wall on the west facade. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of Section 15.30701 General Standards for Special Uses and 15.3010703 Detailed Standards for Special Uses in Non-Residential Districts and 15.90103 Applications for a Special Use Permit of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. A map showing the property affected, full legal description, the application, and all supporting materials are available for review and may be obtained from the City Council by way of request to the Department of City Development. A copy of the proposed special use amendment resolution in draft form is available and open for inspection by the public. The proposed amendment is subject to revisions following public hearing and the further consideration by the Plan Commission and the City of Franklin Common Council. This is an aerial of the subject side. Okay. So this request for a special use amendment is to allow for this building addition that includes also a truck loading dock. In 2015, similar special use was granted to this property for a building addition at the same location, but a smaller size. But that addition was not built, so that's why the applicant is requesting a new special use amendment for this building addition. The proposed use for the building addition will be for warehousing of auto parts. In the analysis of the request, I would like to mention on the landscape surface ratio, that is the minimum landscape area that is required per the Unified Development Ordinance. A minimum of 40% is required in this zoning district. If you can see in the area, there's a minimal landscape area. So, but what the codes establish is that it doesn't allow additions or structures that will increase the level of nonconformity. So therefore, that if they are proposing, for example, additional impervious surface. But this is not the case because the building addition will be located on existing impervious surfaces. So it will not increase the level of nonconformity. Would like to mention that this is similar to the special use permit previously granted in 2015.
That was the big piece to that.
Correct. However, with regards to this, to the minimum landscape surface ratio, there is an existing conservation easement for this property that was established at the time of the previous special use permit that is approximately this area here, green hatch. So that area is for a shore buffer that is 75 feet from the ordinary high water line. What staff is suggesting for this is not included in the resolution, it's in the report, so a Plan Commission will need to add that condition if the Plan Commission was to follow this suggestion, is removal of the impervious surface located approximately here, that is within the conservation easement area, but outside the area for truck turning movement. So that suggestion is in the staff report, but again, it's not in the resolution. With regards to require landscape features, as you can see in the aerial, the previous slide, there's minimal existing landscape features. So in the code requirement for landscape features, quantity of trees and shrubs is based on the quantity of parking spaces. So staff estimated the parking spaces required for this site to be 22 parking spaces. So that have a requirement of 5 of each of the type of trees that are required by the code, shade trees, evergreen trees, and decorative trees, plus 5 shrubs. So the recommendation of the staff is that the applicant submit a landscape plan depicting these required landscape features. That condition is included in the resolution. The staff have no comments on lighting. The applicant is proposing to relocate a lighting pole.
One poll, correct?
Correct, 1 lighting pole. Yep, no objections. With regards to parking, the existing parking is over the requirement of the UDO. So the suggestion to remove the impervious surface from the conservation easement area will not impact the provided parking to be under the UDO because it's already over the requirement by several parking spaces. Another point is the conservation easement that was recorded in 2015 has a covenant that says that at the time of redevelopment of this site, the protection of the conservation easement will apply and the applicant will need to remove all impervious surfaces from the conservation easement area. In a staff opinion, this is not a redevelopment of the site. It's a building addition, but would like to note for consideration of the Plan Commission. So staff is recommending approval of this application with the conditions listed in the resolution. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll go last if somebody wants to start. Mr. Leon?
I have questions, but I would prefer to wait till after public comment to ask mine.
Sure. Okay, the applicant would like to come up, Mr. Carstensen. We got 2 chairs. I'll have to pull a third one up there, please.
Yeah, Tommy, you could pull that one up.
You can perhaps share the microphone, Kelly. I just ask to state your name, and you can use a business address, is fine, but when you're speaking, speak like karaoke, right in, right in.
Got it. I'm not going to sing, though. Mark Karstensen, 6748 South Yale Drive, Franklin.
Justin Johnson, JSD Professional Services, W238 N1610 Bussy Road, Waukesha.
Tommy Hiller, Hiller Ford, 601 East Ogden Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53202.
Just before we start, what year did Hiller Ford open up in the city of Franklin?
1956.
Thank you. All right, you got the floor.
67 years ago.
1956, predates the UDO, predates a lot of things.
Correct. Correct. Well, thank you for letting us be here tonight. A few comments that we have. We'll talk first about the staff's recommendations. In 2015, for those of you, I think Mr. Haley was here and that time. I don't know who else. I know Jesse was here at that time. We came in for a special use amendment for Hiller Ford for several new building projects, new showroom, quick lane development. We did some refacing of the used car building and so forth. At that time, when we went through that approval, the approval, as Regulube had pointed out, states that if there would be a redevelopment, that the hang up here was the conservation easement, right? The DNR had determined that ditch actually there is a very low grade wetland, okay? Unfortunately, they determined that it's navigable, which is questionable, but here nor there. I want to point out here that we submitted our application March 27th. Next Wednesday will be 10 months on a project that we feel could have been approved in 2 to 3 months at the most. We're here now finally that Nick Fuchs, who actually was the city planner at the time that reviewed our project in 2015, was actually contacted, and I understand that he does some consulting for the city for overload work and things like that, and he actually took over this project, right, after all these months. I'm not here to step on anybody's toes. However, I think that it needs to be noted that our first roadblock started with our application where it said that this is a redevelopment. Mr. Regulu said it was a redevelopment. Lori Miller, who was the city planner at the time, said it was a redevelopment. And it was a flat out no, you can't do this. Okay. I asked them at the time, did you go and review our approval back in 2015? Yes and no, kind of yes, maybe no, we don't really know. The warehouse addition was approved in that approval. Now, I understand that 12 months goes by, if you haven't built it, it drops off, which is a whole nother issue. I don't think that should have happened. I missed it, quite frankly, in the language. I don't know if it had to be a standard in the UDO that you only get 12 months, but here nor there. And I tried to explain this, both Justin and I, to the planning department here, and we were faced with probably the most egregious behavior that I've seen. I've worked in this city for over 35 years with developments, and most of you probably know me. It was just impossible. And so we had to go through, until now, Mr. Mayor, I contacted you for some help, which you were gracious enough to step in. Ms. Hurst stepped in a great way. And so here we are tonight. I think, I'm not trying to be on a soapbox here, but I think that you need to understand that this city needs to understand that we have a business here that's probably one of the longest running business here in Franklin. They're a great corporate citizen. Anybody who knows me is I don't come in with a development asking for favors or things that we can't get through the UDO. We all know the UDO is a mess. It has been forever, right? But facing an attitude that it is black and white and there's no way to get around it was just not the right approach. I was very embarrassed for Hiller. And at the end of the day, honestly, if Nick Fuchs was not a consultant for the city, this project would be dead. We wouldn't be
He
here.
was assigned by design. He was assigned by me by design. to get
Which was
moved.
great. But, I mean, so the point here is that I've never experienced anything like this in the city, and I've worked a lot here, right? So what Mr. Fuchs had reviewed, and in his recommendations along with Regulu's here, the only hiccup that we have, I think, is, and it's a negotiation in my mind right now, is in the conservation easement where we are required to have a 75-foot buffer that is in place. The UDO does allow for variances to that, okay? You, the Plan Commission, can allow that buffer to be 30 feet, okay? We don't need the amount of plantings that Mr. Fuchs has asked for. Hiller doesn't have a problem with planting, okay?
Good.
We don't need to be removing any asphalt. In the approval in 2015, it states that Hiller can keep that asphalt and maintain it. Now, anybody who knows car dealerships, asphalt is worth more than gold, right? I don't think that it should be necessary to, if we can show, we have an exhibit we'll show here tonight, we brought a landscape plan along. I think show that we can properly plant those trees in that conservation easement on, right behind that current asphalt, we're fine, we're done then. But to ask Hiller to give up more very important usable space, they have 150 to 200 new cars coming in. This is where they store their inventory, right? So we ask that you take a look at that and not make Hiller remove the suggested asphalt in the conservation easement where these plantings were. Everything else on the staff recommendations, we're fine with. A few things here that's not mentioned in here is that Hiller was attempting to add a sign to the side of their body shop not long before we submitted this in March. And not only were they told no, they were told that you're in non-compliance with your signage on this property. Again, if we submitted a sign package in 2015 that was approved. I could not get this planning department to understand that. It was just a flat out no. And it wasn't just a no, it was, Mr. Hiller, we're more than likely you're gonna have to pick some signs that are gonna have to come down. All right? Very disturbing, quite frankly. So I think what's gonna happen next is that Hiller will need some signage. They're, in my view, they're not over signing a property in any way, shape, or form, but I believe that there's availability to get a variance with the sign code pursuant to the Unified Development Ordinance. In fact, that's what your first public hearing was about, wasn't it? The processes and what was going on here. So that'll come in later, but I just want to make sure that this was a very hard one for me as the developer and the general contractor for Hiller Ford to go back to Tom Hiller and his father Jay for month after month saying we just don't have an answer here. We're not getting it. We're going backwards here until Mayor, you stepped in, and Kelly, you stepped in, and it just wasn't, it wasn't necessary. They've lost tens of thousands of dollars in revenue because this building would have been done by August if we were to have the approval. What's happened from back in March till now, interest rates gone up to 5-6% more. I mean, there's all sorts of things that time sensitive on the applicant's side of things. So I'll leave it at that. Am I missing anything, Justin?
No, I mean, I've got, sorry. I do have that landscape plan here. If you-
Yeah, I think we should. Is that appropriate to look? We brought a landscape plan. We'd like an opinion, at least from the Plan Commission here.
So basically what it shows is the 5 types of every tree, shrub, decorative tree, and shows how we place them along that west edge of the asphalt pavement without having to remove any of the pavement. So it gives the quantity that the city recommends in the draft resolution. A couple of pictures on there that shows the space that's available, just to put it in perspective a little bit.
Thank you. We're going to have some questions now from commissioners. Commissioner Leon?
Were we going to go to public comment first, Mayor? I was waiting on that.
Anybody in the audience wishing to, what? Well, that's why I'm just opening up to him.
Well, anybody else, they might wait till after the public hearing, that's going by the rules.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I guess I just have one question or point of clarification. My understanding that the state has declared it a navigable stream, the 75-foot setback from that, we're mandated by state law to require that, is my understanding. That as a municipality, that's 75 feet It's not something that we can't override.
I guess the question would be whether that's a building setback or if that's an impervious surface setback. My understanding is that it's a building setback.
Setback from the ordinary high water mark.
Correct. Correct.
Well, just one note, according to the Unified Development Ordinance, it's a shore buffer. So it's
Right.
no building, no impervious, no grading.
Agreed. But that's why we have 75 feet, because that's what the state mandates. It's my understanding. It's a shore buffer. It's just, there's no buildings there, and you're not encroaching on it. I just wanted to get that all straight. You're not changing anything that would be there. The issue of removing the asphalt is still another thing. I mean, basically, it's in the conservation easement, has been for years. I'm not going to push that.
We've been approved in 2015, not, that Hiller Ford can maintain that asphalt and not remove it. So,
Until something changes significant. I don't want to sit here and mince points about whether this is a major redevelopment or not. I'm just trying to get you to understand that we're not just trying to be onerous here, that it's what the law requires, and it's what our ordinances say, and it's what had been agreed to prior. Now, if there's a reason to change all that, let's get into it.
I think you misunderstood me, Mr. Haley. I didn't ask for the 75-foot buffer zone to be changed. I say it could be changed. You're saying it can't be changed. Okay, that's for another discussion. What's most important is that Hiller was approved in 2015 to leave that asphalt in place and be able to maintain it. Period. We shouldn't be talking about removing asphalt. That's all I'm trying to say.
Anything further? Mr. Leon?
I want to hear from the public before I address my one question and a comment to the applicant.
Anything further up here? Okay. There's no one else is commenting.
Yeah, I don't think we've had an announced public comment yet. I mean, we had the public
And I,
notice read, but
with notice was read, was open. And did anybody, I'm gonna open the hearing now, okay? Anybody's wishing to come up and speak at this time, please do.
Tom Taylor, 7014 Elroy Court. I wasn't meaning to speak on this. I'm here for the other issues on the agenda, but I can't resist it. Mr. Carstensen has built some of the most quality developments in anywhere in Wisconsin, if not the Midwest. Hiller Ford is one of the premier businesses that has been in Franklin for years and years, that has given so much to the city. I understand what Commissioner Haley is saying. You got a set of ordinances and you got a set of laws, and if it's state law, you got to do that. But I would highly recommend to the commission that if there's any leeway at all to try and find a way to get this resolved, to do so. You have the Rock Sports Complex that was built as a entertainment center to have people come to your city to look at it, to spend money, at Menards. Well, when they come to Hiller Ford, and they're coming all the time, it has the same effect as the Rock. So I know that there have been many situations where things have been done to accommodate businesses. This particular business, and the only reason I'm getting up is because Hiller is such an outstanding business. And Mr. Carstensen, he's known all over the place for building quality development. So I would urge the commission to do whatever is possible to get this done.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one else, it's closed. Mr. Leon?
thank you, Mayor. I always want to hear not only from staff and the applicant, but the public to raise any other questions that they might have. And the applicant did answer one of the questions. And first question to staff, and actually before that, I'll make a comment. While I understand the process has been lengthy and cumbersome, planning staff and city staff are working with many applicants and are abiding by the various, not only the UDO, but other requirements that they have. And there are staffing issues that the city administrator and the mayor are actively working on. So they work hard, and they're working hard with lots of applicants. So with the 10 to 15-minute speech that you gave about the process, 10 minutes, I do believe that our staff should be commended for the hard work that they do with not only you, but others. With that said, question to staff, correct me if I'm wrong, but the recommendation about the pervious service is not a condition as it stands. And so it's not included in the resolution as it stands, correct?
That's correct. It's a suggestion in the staff report, but it's not in the draft resolution that you have in your packet.
Staff doing due diligence and making a recommendation to this body. With that said, the biggest question that I have, understanding this was approved in 2015, but wasn't completed, if it's approved tonight and they do go forward with it, is this going to require annual reapproval because it's special use, or is this a one-time?
Special use is normally valid for 1 year, but if the applicant obtain building permits within that year, then it doesn't need to go back to.
Once they build it and everything, we don't have to come back. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. That was the only thing I wanted to clarify. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderwoman Day.
Thank you. I just have two things. First, like to echo what Commissioner Leon said about our planning staff and city staff in general. With that also on the record from myself. The question that I have regarding the 2015 edition that you mentioned, it was quite a bit smaller than the one that you are doing right now. Is it possible that some of the issues that are being discussed tonight were not recommended at that point in time because it was such a smaller footprint than it is right now? And then my question is, you submitted the landscape plan to us. Is that what you plan to give to officially to the development department to look at for that? Okay. And then also, I'm assuming that your addition that you plan to do in 2015 was for a similar purpose for parts storage and whatnot.
Correct.
So in my mind, the redevelopment piece is null because that is, what you were going to do. So that piece for me is null. I appreciate the landscape plan. I appreciate you accommodating the additional greenery. And that is all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the commissioners? Nothing, Mr. City Attorney, anything to add? Okay. Is there a motion, Mr. Regulo?
Pillar 4, a special use amendment. A motion to recommend approval of an amendment to a special use permit for Hiller 4 for a proposed building addition of a parts warehouse use at the west end of the existing shop building located at 6455 South 108th Street.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to D. Well, what?
Everyone have a Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry
Same to you.
Christmas, Mark. Good seeing you, sir.
Take care of you.
We're gonna handle D1. We're gonna handle D1, and then we'll go into D2, 3, and 4.
Okay, I would just, if I can, I just wanted to ask for a suspension of the
Yes.
rules when we get to
2, 3, and 4, sir.
2, 3, and 4 to allow people to speak for no longer than 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
D1, Anhalt, release of plat restriction. Request to allow for a fence and shed within the 30-foot planting strip upon Lot 2 in Southwood East Edition, Number 2 subdivision, 4107 West Barnwood Court, tax key number 880002100.
Thank you.
Martinez.
This is a request by Mr. Anhalt to release a plat restriction and to allow for the installation of a fence and a shed within the planting strip. We can see the location of the proposed shed and the location of the proposed fence. And this green area is what it's considered a planting strip that was created when the subdivision was platted. You can see the planting street runs all along West Ryan Road on the south side of the subdivision. There is another restriction from the plat noted here, that is this line here, that is the setback line, 42 feet from the right-of-way line. And that restriction says that there shall be no structures placed between the highway and the setback line, end of quote. City staff consulting with DOT if this restriction still applies, and they confirmed that yes, that this restriction still applies, and the local governments cannot authorize the installation of any structure within this 42-foot building setback without first a variance from the DOT, Department of Transportation. So the Plan Commission may authorize the fence, but not the shed without first the applicant submitting a approved variance from the Department of Transportation. I would like to note that there are other fences that has been approved in this planting street. So Mr. Angel lot is approximately located here, and this is lot 1. So you can see a fence was approved for lot 1. And also on the other side, there was also a fence that was approved. Sorry. Yeah. Staff is recommending denial of this request because it's contrary to the intent of the planting strip. However, the Plan Commission may recommend approval of the proposed fence, but not the shed. And the attached resolution that you have in your packet is to authorize the fence only. The applicant will need to obtain the variance from DOT and then go back with another request to allow for the shed.
Okay, thank you. Comments? Mr. Leon?
Just one question, staff. Is this the item that could go before BZBA next month, or is it something else?
No, it has to go to Common Council.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Day.
Mr. Martinez, you did state that in the pictures that we have of the neighboring properties, that both of those fences were officially approved by the city to be there, correct? It was not just that somebody wanted a fence and they put up a fence. They do have approvals from the city to do so.
Correct, yeah, and I even noted the permit numbers in the staff report and a previous resolution number to authorize the installation of fences.
Okay. And then is the applicant aware of the DOT regulation and that the city at this point cannot, I see a thumbs up in the gallery. Okay, thank you. I'm good, thank you.
I was just going to ask the question whether the applicant has been in contact with DOT to take the next steps. Thank you.
Good, excellent. Oh, very good. Seeing no further discussion, would you like to read the motion, please?
Anhalt miscellaneous application. A motion to recommend approval of a resolution authorizing the installation of a fence within the 30-foot planting strip, plat restriction upon Lot 2 in Southwood East Addition Number 2 subdivision, 4107 West Barnwood Court.
Move to approve.
Second. You can
We
have
have
Kevin.
a first and a second. Alderwoman Day is a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Sorry, Kevin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion
One
carries.
clarification,
Uh-oh.
Mayor. Alderwoman Day had the motion.
Oh,
My district.
I was looking
I will
over here
defer to Commissioner Haley for the record on that
I
second.
was looking to console Commissioner Haley as he's
Don't
felt.
worry about my soul.
All right, so we have the first, second, motion carries. Thank you very much.
And I can, this is probably a good transition. I can make a motion now, if that's all right.
I think this is the perfect time
Okay.
to make that transition.
Then I motion that we suspend the rules to allow for public comment on agenda items D, 2, 3, and 4, which are all to do with POTS General.
Second.
So we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, so I'm going to put this just as if it's a normal council meeting. Please come and state your name and address for the record. And then we would like to keep it to the 3-minute rule, as we've gone back to that in the council, as respect for everybody's time. And Mayor Taylor, welcome.
Do we want to have a timekeeper for that, or just go on?
Well,
good
the
faith?
official timekeeper, I was going to ask Regulo if he could do official timekeeping. Normally, engineering does that, and then I just get a simple like this. That's the 3-minute rule.
I used to run track. You're going to give me
You
ready
did,
to
you were a 440 champion.
220. 220, high and low.
220, 440.
Just do 2 of them in a row. It's the same thing.
Okay, my name is Tom Taylor. I live at 7014 Elroy Court, City of Franklin. Just first of all, I want to say Merry Christmas to all of you. I especially want to say thank you to Kevin Haley for all of the things that you've done, Kevin, over the years, not only to benefit Franklin, but to benefit Milwaukee County. This gentleman over here literally has built Milwaukee County and the bike trails and everything else. The Rock Sports Complex is because of him. So, the good part, not the noise,
Not the noise, right.
not the noise. Okay, I'll make it quick. I'm here to ask the plan commissioners to take special interest in looking at the traffic analysis, the impact, the density of the project. What is the impact that this may cause on fire, police, health departments? I think Alderman Day can understand that. In fact, I heard the other night that you were saying that the budget's so tight that there was not enough money maybe to hire emergency equipment for paramedic units.
It's close.
So with that, I also, it's my understanding that the stormwater management program has not been completed. Mr. Morrow, I believe, is the final say on that. So for the neighbors, for myself, we are very concerned about potential flooding or having basements flooded, et cetera. Also for my neighbors, the spillover of the lights, the lighting from the facilities is a major concern. So I'm asking the plan commissioners to take care and deep consideration in this approval or this project. I've made it known that I am not for apartments. However, I have to say to the developer over here that I do appreciate that he has moved the apartments in. He has made more space. He has made room for that wetland that's in the back. And more importantly, he keeps Harry's, so if I need something, I can go over to Harry's and get something. So with that, I would also ask, I think there are other people here tonight that would like to speak on this issue that have some concerns. And with that, thank you and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too, Mayor. Whoever would like to come up, and if you wish, once if you know you want to speak and there's that pause, please come on right up. Moving along. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, Mathwig, 7321 Brun Drive. The POTS general site plan has substantially changed and was presented to the constituents in District 5 at a town hall meeting on December 4th.
Oh, sorry.
That wasn't 3 minutes. Questions were raised, but those who voiced opposition to the development were reprimanded and silenced. Now at tonight's meeting, the Plan Commission failed to place these 3 items in the public hearing portion, making it impossible for neighbors to give their perspective. I appreciate Mr. Taylor taking the time to suspend the rules with you. I do believe by not putting it on the public hearing, these actions are unethical, unfair, unjust to the residents that are being impacted by this project. I sent each of you and our aldermen an email expressing the apprehensions surrounding this development. This project will drastically change our neighborhood and the lives of homeowners. As I asked in my email, would you like a 3.5-story apartment building with balconies built in your backyard? I'm not against improvements in the Orchard View property, but what is being proposed is too vast for a 25-acre lot. Matters that will have a negative impact, as Mr. Taylor had already mentioned, are primarily privacy, followed by noise, potential of reduction in property values, the water and sewer issues, light pollution, and I have concern about understaffing of the police and fire departments, and also overcrowding in our public school system. And the increase of traffic is also a concern. The last three matters here could also result in higher property taxes for all the people who call Franklin home. I don't know why the commission hasn't sent out detailed information to each of the households in Ward 19. A comprehensive master plan, how it will impact the community, along with the traffic study provided by Milwaukee County in homeowners' hands, would be beneficial. It also seems as if this is being done at an accelerated pace. Without the knowledge of homeowners in the subdivision, by holding meetings for crucial votes on days before holidays is really hard for us to get support from our neighborhood to come here and be here for this. This is the legacy you want to leave. Is this the legacy you want to leave behind for our city? You will be responsible for destroying a quiet neighborhood. The consequences of your actions will be passed on to neighbors in this room. And those listening at home, I was under the understanding that this was also going to be on YouTube. I'm asking this commission to have compassion for these neighbors, I'm almost done, in this subdivision, and to abide by the Franklin City Ordinance, Chapter 183, which states that the protection and preservation of the home is the keystone to democratic government. So please vote no, stop this development from moving forward, and let's work together to protect the well-being, tranquility, and privacy in this subdivision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I just want to echo, it's very concerning to me. I'm here as a precautionary tale regarding the development of this project with the exact same developers that did the Rock Sports Complex. Obviously, you can follow media, you can follow, there's been over 1,000 complaints filed regarding the Rock Sports Complex, the Planning Commission, the staff, there's been nothing done to adjust the decibel level. Everybody knows it's a problem. It's been stated at hundreds of meetings and nothing has been done. So it's very concerning to me. I looked through the plan. There's not one speck of information regarding noise. How are you going to establish and mitigate the noise? There's not one sentence in there, anywhere. Can't you learn your lesson? Seriously, 10 years of people coming and saying, please stop torturing my family. 10 years. And you can't even address noise on a new project that has a band shell? I don't even know what to say at this point. I'll go into the berm. There's a berm between the Velo Village and the $1 million homes that's 60 feet wide and it's probably 15 feet high at least, maybe higher. And those are 3-story buildings. So I see that there's some sort of berm being proposed between these buildings and these residential homes. I don't see how wide that berm is. It looks like it's 30, but I don't see information regarding how high that berm is. If this is meant to be some sort of screening, and there's no specific information about the number of trees, the type, and if they die, like half of them have died at the Rock, what's going to be the repercussions of having those rebuilt. By the way, the berm near the homes that are not $1 million homes has been filled in. by the Rock Sports Complex people. So that's how we're treated. So if you think that there's going to be a different pattern with this same development team, with the same type of project for this neighborhood, it's a precautionary tale that I'm trying to express that the Planning Commission has the opportunity to put conditions and restrictions on this development. The Velo Village project itself isn't even compliant with UDO standards for its exterior finish. You can ask the consultant. The UDO consultant stated that at a public meeting. The exterior finishes on Velo Village are not compliant. And the city taxpayers have paid $30 to $60 million for this development, and it's not even compliant with the UDO. How is that possible? The traffic study, is there information? I didn't see any finances regarding the local financial impact of changing any road, 76th Street, Rawson. There's a federal, state, county, and local impact. Where is the specific financial information regarding that? People deserve to know this information. I didn't see any environmental impact study. I didn't see any environmental impact statement. The Rock Sports Complex with 140 acres, they cleared 23 acres of natural protected resources and 1,000 trees that were 8 inches in diameter. There was no impact study, no environmental impact study, no environmental impact statement done for that. As far as plans being approved, in 2018, there was plans approved for the Rock Sports Complex. There were so many changes. There's over 100 major changes to those plans. So I'm predicting that something similar could certainly happen here. So I'll go back to the noise. In 2017, there was contracts that literally stated that speakers could not be pointed at residential homes or pointed out from the stadium. It took 6 years, 600 events to get the speakers pointed away from people's homes. 6 years. That is how passive, non-responsive this city is. So I'm raising that concern with these people again, that they're going to be sitting here, everything's going to get approved and it's going to go through and they're going to be fighting for years just to get the noise turned down, get the band shell to be not so obnoxious. And I know I've heard it's a small venue. It's going to be a small noise, small band shell venue. The Umbrella Bar stage for the food trucks have a single person or 2 people with a guitar and 5 speakers that I can hear at my house a half mile away. That is a small venue that I can hear a half mile away, which is proven in the Milwaukee County Sound Studies. There are 42 events in 2022 that didn't even receive a permit for. That's what these people are going to be up for. This needs to be resolved, and I'm so tired of coming to meetings. I can't even express how frustrating this is. I think this item should be tabled until all these questions can be answered in detail with specific information about finances, traffic impact study, number of trees, type of trees, height of berm, who's going to take care of the trees, and the noise, of course. I appreciate that.
You said an environmental study?
Yes, an environmental impact statement is something that's done for almost every other development. There was never one done. I'm sure Kevin Haley can agree to that.
Thank you, Dan.
An environmental study or environmental statement, and there was never one done. Abutting a 1,000-acre natural resource park. It certainly was necessary. Thank you.
Tough act to follow. Anybody want to come up next? Right? Todd, I wouldn't come up next. I would just sit there and shake your head. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you? My name's Jim Morrow, 7256 South Foxcroft Court. I just want to ask the panel and Mr. Barber, how would you like to have that piece of property that's going to be built looking over your backyard? Tell me you'd really appreciate that. You'd really like to have this apartment complex looking over your house, in your backyard, in your bathroom, in your bedroom, 3 stories high. Just think about it, because I sure wouldn't want it. I don't live on that edge, but I'm in the area, and with traffic and everything else, and who's going to be paying for the more police, more fire, their pension, their health, Who's going to be paying for it? The taxpayers are going to go up. If they want to build this, and I don't know for sure, you would know more, what about the Northwestern building? Is that vacant? Or is it going to be vacant? Why don't they buy that property and destroy that building and build their apartment down there? That's,
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? One at a time.
I'm sorry. Dana Gint, 9011 West Hawthorne Lane. I had another note that I forgot to ask about. Is there going to be a TID proposed for this development? Has there been any discussion about public financing? That is something that needs to be disclosed to the public before this is all being voted on, to understand what the financial impact is. There's only so much TID capacity in the city of Franklin. This needs to be disclosed if this is going to be asked for financials, because the Brock Sports Complex took 2/3 of the entire TID capacity for the city. And it's a nuisance. It violates ordinance 183-40. It's a public nuisance under 178. I know Mr. Martinez likes to think that 79 decibels is acceptable for my backyard. That's totally unacceptable and unethical. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come up and speak at this time? Mr. Barber.
Might not be popular, but I'm going to be honest with you. I've had 2 town hall meetings on this, and there's been a meeting with Poth General before my meetings, in which I personally went around to talk to residents. I handed out flyers in the immediate area, 150 to 200 flyers, and I invited them all to town hall meetings. At those town hall meetings, many of these same concerns have been raised, quite a bit more than you're hearing tonight. But the developer, Land by Label, has listened to that. I've been working with them since June on the issues, and we've incorporated many of those concerns, and that's why there is a new site plan that is dealing with a lot of those issues. Now, I'm not here to say it's perfect. I'm not here to say that progress doesn't change things, because I know it does. But at the same time, I think there's been a concerted effort to mitigate the concerns. And over time, I'm sure that if there are issues, they will be mitigated again as they come up. So my recommendation is to go ahead, approve it, and let's work with the developer and the residents, primarily and the residents in the future, to get this done. I've tried to do that. People have said I haven't had meetings, haven't had any communication with that's wrong. I can cite dates and times. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Barber. Ma'am, point of order, please. Hold on. To echo Alderman Barber, he has had numerous meetings. I've attended them. I've listened to constituents, listened to voters. I mean, we have. I mean, to say that he hasn't had them is I don't want to say it. Well, it's not accurate. I mean, he's had them. He's had them at the Vader Room. I mean, unless I dreamt them, he's had them. And I'm glad he's done that. That's a great thing. Ma'am, if you'd like to address anything more, just like Ms. Gint did for round 2, please come up, state your name again for the record.
Mathwig, 7321 Brun Drive. If you
Just
indeed,
face up here, ma'am, please.
Mr. Barber, if you indeed did blanket the area in our subdivision
I know.
with
That's-
flyers, I would like to have your records, because I also have handed out about 150 flyers to neighbors, and a lot of the neighbors that I have spoken to tell me they're not even aware of this development. So if you have given them this information, either they're ignoring it, or you're not speaking to them directly that they know about it. I think a mailing on the part of the commission to all the neighbors in Ward 19 would be a really good idea, because if they get a letter from the city of Franklin, they're going to open it up and they're going to read it, and they're going to know what's going on here. And I just want to say, the apartments that are going to be located on the east side of the property are going to be an invasion of privacy to the people who live on Brun Drive and the cul-de-sac that adjoins that. There is no, I will be able to see it from my house, and I don't even live right behind where it's going to be built. So it's an invasion of privacy. And these people have, when they built their homes, they were assured that this property behind their house was a wetland and that it would be preserved that way, and now it's being built on. So their quality of life is going to diminish because of this project.
Can I ask you a question, ma'am? So you're making a statement that somebody told them, this is back in like 91, 92, when Orchard View was built by Mr. John O'Malley. At the same breath, they were told that there'd never be.
When Dover Hills was built. Can you address that? These are people who built
I
property.
just haven't heard that before, because that's quite a statement that a developer would make, giving an assurance that could be decades down the road. And then let's say that assurance was made. What legal grounds do they have to make that, and what legal culpability do they have moving forward? I won't even bother my city attorney with that, because I don't think there is any. And what the thing is, well, if someone told me that, I would question that, because you can't predict the future. You can't predict the future. I'm just hoping, my whole hope is that Orchard View gets redone and everybody's really happy with a nice central, usable, and there's some sort of cohesiveness that the neighbors are accepting, the business is accepting. That's our goal. I'm just telling you that part of it, man.
But I keep hearing the words that it's for the community.
Yes,
but
100% it is.
But what's available right now at Orchard View
Terrible.
is more commercial use space than what's being proposed.
Looks like a ghost town.
I'm not saying it looks
It's
good.
terrible.
And as I said, I'm not against improving it. I'm just against having these apartments that will invade the privacy, not only to our subdivision, but to the condos also. It will
I
be an
understand your point.
invasion of privacy and light pollution. I can see Pick and Save's lights already from my house. So this is even closer. That's gonna be a lot of light pollution in our area.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing, folks? Mr. Barber, come back round two. Hold on, nobody can hear you. Uh-oh. Can you come to the microphone, please?
I talked to you, I met with you, your wife, and came to your house and walked the whole length.
Mr. Barber, can you come to the microphone, please? Mr. Barber, to the microphone, please. Thank you, sir.
I just want to say that without having exact documentation, I have done my due diligence trying to inform people and trying to get the input necessary to make the changes that went from the first phase of this in terms of the drawing to what you're seeing tonight in the second phase of it. The way it's laid out is accommodating many of those issues that were raised in the meetings. So I just want that for the record as well.
Thank you, sir. Now we're going back to round ones. Welcome, sir.
Eli,
Name and address, please.
Yeah, Eli Gasavic, 7518 Carter Circle North. My home is literally, the backyard is right across from Poth. I wasn't going to say anything, but I've got to be fair to Mike Barber. I mean, he literally came into my house. And then, I let him in. I did.
We've had complaints.
And we walked my backyard, and he saw everything. And he's kept me up to date on every single meeting. So
Excellent.
I can't let somebody besmirch him. In my estimation, he's doing a wonderful job. Now, on the flip side, I would like to besmirch Poth General, but it's just so much is being crammed into such a little area. It just is, I don't see how it can work. Obviously, you have the approvals and you can do whatever you want, but it just seems as though it's illogical. Doesn't make any sense to have 6 apartment buildings and 25 acres. It's bizarre, you know. It's beyond me, but like I say, it's just bizarre. I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. All right, good evening, sir, welcome.
Michael Blank, 7126 West Bond Drive. I talked to Parts General, I talked to people, and the previous layout that we had would have highlighted during the parking area right into, or would shine right into my backyard, into my windows, and they did something. They laid it out different, so that part is great. But from my backyard, I can even, without having anything there right now, I can see that big tree they put up by the rock. So that's how far it goes.
It's a 100-foot Christmas tree, Dana. Christmas.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm saying, they're not. It's quiet.
And it makes no noise. It's a silent tree.
Until they play Christmas music. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bartasevich, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. Todd Bartasevich, 7297 Brun Drive. My backyard is literally going to be looking at these apartments. What a nuisance. So here I am going to be barbecuing with the family, whatever like that, and literally look at this apartment building facing me. Franklin don't need any more apartments. I mean, I just don't understand how this got this far for our neighborhood. Literally, everyone on Brun Drive is lost of privacy. I just don't understand how it got this far. I mean, who wants to sit in our backyard and literally, everyone, the apartment buildings, patios, everyone's gonna be sitting out there. I mean, that's just wrong. I mean, you're not talking, 300-400 feet. You're only talking 50 feet. If we're looking at a 3.5-story building, that's not the way Franklin was built. I could talk for about a half hour, but I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Ted. Still round two, sir. Coming up.
By the way, thank you very much, Commission, for allowing us to speak. You can see there's a lot of concerns here. Tom Taylor, 7014 Elroy Court. I just want to say that Alderman Barber did have a town hall meeting over at the library. Mr. Mayor, you attended, and probably 70 or 80 others. But I live on Elroy Court, which is just off of Brun. I and my neighbors literally knew nothing about this. In fact, my neighbor came over to me and said, "Hey, did you get the flyer? Did you get the mailing?" I said, "No, not." Was there any information from the alderman at that time? No. Now I think I'm like 501 feet away from the project. But my neighbors, one was the former executive director of Catholic Knights. I have a dentist. I have a principal, Catholic schools. I have engineers, IT professionals for Northwestern Mutual. They didn't get any information, heads up on this. So what you're seeing tonight, what you've seen at other meetings, you're seeing frustration because literally that whole neighborhood, not Whitstone Village, I understand, had meetings. And they came over, and Mr. Barber did come to them. But we live very, very close in that wetland that Linda's talking about. Developers make all kinds of promises. No, nothing intended over there. But other developers. And, you grew up here. Franklin was a Wild West town. I mean, it had quite a reputation, and we used to have a speedway, and we had, the Rock was a landfill, and Mr. Gajan had the whole thing. So if somebody's going to tell me that some of the developers in the past didn't make promises that were unethical, I'm not going to believe it. I believe the residents here. Anyhow, I wanted to explain to you, and again, thank you for giving us the time. The frustration you're seeing is we do not believe that we have had ample time to study this, to give you good recommendations. As I asked that on July 5th that this issue be laid over, the rezoning. It was not. In fact, my alderman made the motion to approve the rezoning. I think you have the cart in front of the horse on this whole thing. But if people were allowed to speak, and if this was a public hearing, you would have, again, 100 people here tonight. So I just wanted to let you know there is a level of frustration. The last thing is, Mr. Mayor, you and I talked today. Good talk. Very good talk. If this is going to be a TIF district, if the 5 taxing units decide upon that, I would wholeheartedly ask that you look at the entire area, and I'm looking at Kevin, that you do a comprehensive view of your downtown area. And if it's a TIF district, you can ask the developer to do a few more things. You're basically, you're underwriting the project. And if it fails, the council is on the hook. So if you want to go from apartments to condos, and I don't want to give this gentleman a heart attack over here, but you might be able to, he's a nice guy, you might be able to persuade him maybe to have a few of those. So anyhow, with that, thank you again, and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Merry Christmas, Mayor.
Jim Morrow, 7256 South Foxcroft Court. If the neighborhood is going to get this shoved on us, what about making a 100-yard barrier from dwellings or their property line to the parking lots, whatever's going to go with this this apartment complex? So they have a buffer, so they have a little bit of privacy back there, and give them 100 yards. You know, that's going to shrink their little living quarters down a little bit, but it's going to keep your residents a little happier. That, like this gentleman, give him 100 yards from his property to the parking lot for the apartment complex and everything. It's just a suggestion, you know, to give these people some.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nobody else coming up, we're going to make a motion to go back into regular meeting.
I move that we resume normal meeting. I always get that wrong, Jesse. How do I say that right?
Return to the normal order.
Return to the normal order of business.
Return to normal order. We got a first, we have a second. Mr. Haley, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We are back in regular order. Before we go into item D as in David number 2, Mr. Martin, would you mind coming up to the front? Just, thank you. And before we start, I would like to, publicly state again, just as Mr. Barber did and Mr. Taylor did, I've enjoyed this journey, as we call it, as we go through this, because you have been very open to ideas. You've been, and I know those ideas, when you change them, cost money. They do. I understand that. And, you've been a breath of fresh air. I was 6 years on the council before getting elected, and there were developers that were not anywhere near as open to discussing things that you were. So I'll just start with that. So I'm going to read item B as in David, number 2, POS General Certified Survey Map. Request to combine 3 existing properties bearing tax key numbers 756-9993-012 and 756-993-016 and 756-9993-021 into a single parcel to accommodate the POS General Development located at approximately 7154 South 76th Street. Open up the commission first. Mr. Leone.
Do we need a presentation from staff first?
We can do a presentation and we'll, okay.
I will present, I have a brief presentation on the CSM, and then I have more slides for the other items.
Thank you.
So only for the CSM, the certified survey map is to combine the 3 lots that were, that are part of the Plan Development District, number 42, POF General, that was approved in summer. So one of the conditions of approval for the Plan Development District was that the applicant present either a plat or a certified survey map to combine the 3 lots. This certified survey map is not dedicating any land to the city. All the drive will be private drive, and the amenities will remain private amenities. Even though it's called in the report public amenities, but it will be part of the private lot. So this, the CSM is consistent with the Plan Development District because all lots are zone PDD 42. And that's my presentation only for the CSM.
Because as you said earlier, you've got things as we're going into all 3 items, which is fine. So now you're good right now with item D2.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Leon.
Thank you, Mayor. Echo comments from the mayor and comments about Alderman Barber earlier. I have, in full disclosure, I support this project. I reached out to Alderman Barber as recently as yesterday and well before that when your neighbors have reached out to me about these concerns to bring their questions and their comments in a good faith way to work with the applicant. The applicant I've talked with on several occasions. I've attended those meetings. In fact, at one meeting that did not seem to have a very good timeline from announcement to having the meeting, I asked him to hold another meeting, and he did. I think when we discussed it earlier tonight, there have been 4 separate meetings outside of Plan Commission to do with this project. As I look at the CSM here, I can see changes that were made based on comments from those meetings. I watched as the Land by Label staff took notes and talked with neighbors about ways to make this project more conducive to neighbors. The reality is that this project, with some of the things that apartments that people don't like are, and I guess I shouldn't speak for the applicant here, but it's not economically viable without it, right? And then we would continue to have a blighted property in Orchard View that to have something come in would probably necessitate a TIF district, and still might go down that path, right? I know you're going to reserve the right, but no way of doing that. And in fairness, that's exactly what TIF districts are designed to support. So you have a good faith partner, and as the mayor pointed out, not every developer comes in and works as well with staff and neighbors. And I suspect that when Mr. Martin speaks earlier, he's not going to spend 10 to 15 minutes criticizing staff in this process. So please take note of that, and please understand that you have a good partner here. The question that I have is specifically property line to the residential structures. I tried to do the math, but it's certainly more than 50 feet. Can you, and that question was raised by one of the neighbors, can you discuss in terms of, I guess we'll start with, make a 2-part question, the closest residential structure to the property line, and then also the average. And as I'm looking here, it's going to be exclusively to the south and east. And can we pull up a map that shows it in a little more? Yeah, that should be a good one. Or that. Yeah, either one of those are fine. So closest structure to the property line, distance, and then average of all the structures.
Yeah, so the closest is 120 feet, and that's on the east side. In terms of the average across the perimeter, I don't know, but 120 is the closest. So the average would be something materially higher than that. I think when you look at the south side, you can see we're probably 400 feet plus to between structures.
Thank you. That's my question.
That's it. Did you want to hand over the pointer? It's kind of a big deal. Just in case.
So sorry, just I'd like to introduce these guys real quick because you're all sick of seeing me, but this is Evan Crossman and Katie Menakis with Rinka Architects. And so they're responsible for all a lot of the hard work that have gotten us to this point. So I thought it was important that they be here to respond to some of these questions that you all might have.
So right now, just to confirm, it's the 125 feet is the worst case scenario.
I think it's 121.
It would help if you clarified the question just one more time for me.
Yeah, so I'll go to the first part, and I think I can
Thank you.
see it. To the east, thank you, Mayor. 121 feet from the structure to the property line. That's the closest residential structure to the property line, correct?
Correct.
And then the average distance of residential properties is greater than that because I can't see the building numbers right now, but the buildings on the south and even the way the angles, the buildings to the east are further from the property line than that. So I think you said on average 400 feet. That's probably not exact, but it just, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, if we get a chance to go through the presentation we've provided, there's additional graphics that show the existing green space, including the residents' backyards, that I think do a very compelling job of demonstrating how the buildings are oriented, specifically to increase the space between all the residents equitably. So with that, I'll kind of skip through some things and potentially go to that graphic just to save us
Control for the slides there.
Thank you.
You can just
Oh, thank you. Want to go through the whole shebang or skip right through it? Let's go.
Yeah, we just we have a presentation as you've all might expect, but we're happy to do this any which way you want. We can bring up the image to respond to this particular question, and then just sort of work our way through it, whatever you prefer.
My thought was we'd hit some initial questions, you run through the presentation, and we go with the last round. And
You got it.
how about that? That way it kind of covers things they'll probably be asked us.
Yeah, you got it.
Alderwoman Day?
Yeah, so you're okay with us going questions that are not specific to the CSM, or do you want me to hold on those? I don't really have anything on the CSM.
Okay, I would probably say we just go with the CSM first, and then we'll just kind of go in order because we're going to be voting on these individually, so I think that's kind of.
Good there then.
Okay, did you want to hit, is that the graphic that you were talking about with?
Just one more for us. Hold on a moment, please. It's really just getting the site plan up. So what this site plan shows, excuse me, and please continue your questions, but this is a little bit more expansive than the previous image. So you're seeing more of that neighboring context. And the diagrams that we'll go through when we go through the presentation, I think support that, but please continue with your questions.
Okay, if there's any further questions on this, Mr. Haley, CSM?
No, I don't have questions on this. I have some comments at some point that I'd like to
Sure.
make about the whole development.
Okay.
And maybe it is appropriate at this time.
We closed it, ma'am. But what's your clarification, ma'am?
That the property line.
And your response to that, sir?
The question that I believe me and Ian were responding to was residential buildings to our buildings. And what's shown on this plan with the dimension here as well as here along that east edge, which is our pinch point, those structures are 120 feet. Correct, roughly.
Okay, so not that it's like a shell game, but could hit me with this again.
Yeah, so-
I understand it. So
So building to building. So the back of a house.
why don't we do this here? Hold on, folks.
Right here, 120 feet. Right here, 100. Those are the two closest. The code has, I believe, like a 30-foot setback.
That's correct, Ian.
Property line. Our dimension is 60, a little bit more.
And it varies. There's been a concerted effort based on the Natural Resource Protection Plan where we have to preserve a certain percentage of woodlands.
Okay.
So this plan and the way the buildings are oriented is towards that effort of preservation of the existing woodlands.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I guess, which I'm going to kind of go a different little direction here. Why don't you do your presentation, and then we're going to go and we'll go. Mr. Leon?
So just to clarify, I was asking about property line,
Okay.
not structure to structure, and I might not have asked it well, because to the neighbors' points, if they're in their backyard having a barbecue or doing something, but 60 feet is still greater than the example that was given. I think the example was given was 30 feet. So at that east point, we've highlighted the building. It's 60 feet to the property line.
Correct.
And then you can see that there are additional landscaping features to help shield it. So, okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, at this point, I'd like you to do the presentation, then we're going to go knock these out.
Yeah. So real quick, while Evan and Katie are getting ready for this, I do want to just mention a couple of things that have come up, as well as talk about some things I'm not going to talk about. There have been 4 neighborhood meetings outside the scope of the public hearings, whether it's a planning commission or city council. To your all's credit, you always suspend the rules to allow public comment before the planning commission, as we did tonight, whether or not you're not obligated to do it, but you do it. So there's been, and I know there was a reference to the July zoning meeting, which was obviously, there was public comment at that, but this project goes back more than a year from sitting here today. So there's been plenty of opportunity for folks to be heard on this, is my 2 cents. And I will second what some folks have said about Alderman Barber. He has been helpful in coordinating those meetings with us. I think I'll let Evan and Katie show all the changes we made. Some of them are self-evident, some of them are subtle, but we'll go through them. And so I won't steal his thunder. What we're not going to talk about, unless you'd like us to, are things like how many apartment units are on the site, whether there should be certain commercial uses on the site, how high the buildings are. And the only reason I'm saying we're not going to talk about those things is because all those matters were resolved at the zoning. We presented that in front of this commission at the time. We presented it to the council. So I believe any of that sort of discussion, along with any discussion about things like noise at the Rock, are wholly unrelated to what's before the commission tonight. That being said, I'm always, open to answering these questions within reason, as long as we're not, I don't think any of us want to retread the last 11 months of work here.
All right, thank you, folks.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Evan Crossman. I'm from Rinka Architects. This is my colleague, Katie Menakis. We have been working with Land by Label over the past year, I would say, maybe less, to hear and take into consideration all of the comments that Ian and the Land by Label team have gathered. So our starting point factors in a lot of consideration for what has been discussed. For everyone's edification, I've been pressing the button. There we go. Great. So our process may be a little bit different than the process you've been experienced with other architects. We start by establishing some guiding principles. These things all for us are in good faith. And so we have drivers for the site as well as our building designs. And we also like to supplement that with a vision statement. So for this site, we see the vision being rooted in the history of it as a former general store. And we see the opportunity to create a residential and mixed-use community that features natural outdoor amenities, family-oriented programming, and respectfully integrates into the surrounding context. Without going into each and every one of those drivers, I would emphasize the number one is the goal to respect surrounding context. For our building, we really want to achieve a gateway and arrival presence along the west side of 76th Street so that we can attract people to come to this place. Again, with that, we also have a brand identity that we're targeting that we'll talk through. And specific to that, there are some other elements that you'll see in the designs. Starting with the existing site plan and context, taking into consideration the east and south flanked by residential communities. Zooming in a little bit, you get to see the existing woodlands and the expanse of them to the east of the existing strip mall.
Sorry to interject real quick, but that prior slide, there was some commentary about wetlands and wetland impacts and environmental studies. I think as this diagram indicates, we are not impacting any wetland that's on the site. It's been delineated by the DNR. We have jurisdictional determination. So to the extent there are any real wetlands on this site, they're being respected and not impacted.
That's correct. And part of our submission included a natural resource protection plan that factors in the requirements met with woodlands being intervened upon. So our approach to breaking down this site and establishing the program we desire starts with access points. We are preserving all the existing access points, utilizing the existing access easements in the CSM, and highlighting that there is a very strong effort to preserve as much green buffer along the east side of this site as well. With respect to the appropriate spaces and types of spaces and sound, the east side of our site is predominantly a passive space, and the west side is where you get some more of that active program. Once we start to incorporate and show buildings on the site, I'll call attention to the fact that all the buildings are pulled into the site as much as we possibly can with code compliance. The ring road circulates the south, east, and north perimeter, and there is no road. There is no road that will go behind the apartments to the east, so the noise from vehicular traffic is insulated by the buildings. Again, taking a step forward, looking a little bit more at the program that's listed in the legend here at left, you can see that the active uses are located furthest to the west, generally where the existing mall is located. So that's where we've got our commercial uses. As you move further to the east, that is all residential use or private amenity building. The buildings to the west are mixed use, and the buildings to the east are all primarily residential with walk-up units. That takes us to the latest iteration of our site plan, which does call attention to the dimensions that we loosely referenced. We felt very strongly that our orientation and location of these buildings was very sensitive to the neighbors and gave a deliberate effort to pull them as far away from the residences as we could. We very clearly are incorporating the natural amenities that were part of our goals. So the entire central portion of this site is natural amenities, native plantings, as well as some programmable space. That programming is very family oriented. To the west of our site, you know, the idea is that we've taken that former strip mall and turned it into a bit of a Main Street condition that's inviting and welcoming, safe, and has a gateway presence rather than a blighted property. Just to give color to some of the spaces and show that we're not putting large band shells here, you know, the leaders connecting to the images illustrate the intent of some of these spaces. As I mentioned, where my cursor is, that's our sort of Main Street area that has a food truck plaza with some green space to the south of one of our commercial buildings. That family-friendly activation, we're showing different programming, seasonal programming, ice rink potentially, for children, play space, natural play, not necessarily unsafe playgrounds that aren't managed, but just simple playable functioning elements. And then as we work our way towards the east, really trying to conscientiously consolidate native plantings, planting areas, and green space. The next slide shows the updated design from an aerial bird's eye view. So you are above Harry's Ace Hardware looking to the northeast. So you can go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, so just I wanted to pause and just highlight a couple of things that are I think pretty material changes from when we first came here for a concept review in the plan. So starting with the hospitality, the hotel building, which is on the far northwest side of the site. that building was originally located on the south end of the site. It was subsequently, after one of the neighbor meetings, relocated due north. And then after a second neighborhood meeting, it was relocated yet again to be on the far west side of the site. That was a material concern for some folks, so I mention it here. In terms of where the buildings sit as it relates to the south side of the property, several of those buildings were down closer to the property line, and we had the parking inside of the buildings. So it went property line, buildings, parking, and now we've changed that condition. There's a full photometric plan that's been submitted that can be reviewed about the light, but again, I mention it here because that was a material concern we heard from several people.
Taking one step back, because I've been able to gather my thoughts, I want to make a correction without stirring the pot, but our farthest most, easternmost building structure is not 60 feet from the property line. It's more than 40 feet. But I just wanted to make that clear, as in you stepped in to answer it. I wasn't able to confirm it, but I do know that it's more than 40 feet. It's not 60.
Out there, please.
Yes, sir. So these points here. So thank you. I apologize for taking a step back, but in good conscience, I wanted to make that clarification. So then continuing through, we'll start to talk about the building design and start with a brand identity. As we mentioned, the history of this site and the former Potts General Store, we want to sort of tap into that identity and take an approach that factors in history of the site. And so what you're seeing is a collection of images pulled together that speak to the character and grit and that sort of rustic Americana approach to some of the building materials that we've applied. With that, we've been drawn to the look and feel of some of these images as far as the front porch experience and the simplicity of that, the communal nature of that, and taking that sentiment and trying to embed it in a scale of architecture that doesn't commonly operate similar to these. These are some of our building images for the westernmost buildings. As we move to the east, this is where we get to the lower impact properties. These are the residential buildings with the walk-up conditions. These are primarily about a 3-story above grade condition, with the first floor being a residential walk-up, as you can see in several of these images. This image and these series of images speak to the design goals of our clubhouse building. So really just creating a natural community gathering space, with the image on the bottom right being probably our most successful. Which then takes us to what we would call our gateway perspective. So there is a key plan that you see on the top left of the screen with our orientation. You are facing one of the mixed use buildings with the commercial at the ground floor, the activated green space in the center, the safe pedestrian walkability is sort of on display in the foreground of the image. And then with respect to the building architecture itself, featuring high quality materials at the most visible points on the site, which is this area. So that's where you're seeing masonry as well as wood look materials and then other additional high quality elements. But really this is our main street view. As I progress forward, you can see that while it is intended to have a commercial Main Street character, it's also meant to capture the goal of the native plantings and natural amenities. And so what you're seeing is the lush nature of the landscaping that we've populated along and throughout the site, even at the Main Street area. This image probably best celebrates the concept of the Main Street, where we are looking at the ground floor retail. This is typical inline retail. Our developer and our goal is to get some high-end users down there, and then the residential above is activation as well.
So just a quick note on this one. If you recall some of the prior plans we presented to you, they all had commercial elements to it, primarily food and beverage. That's really the same in this concept, but as Evan's describing, we've, as we reviewed the plan, the prior plan, admittedly, it maybe didn't capture as at that Main Street feel that we were trying to accomplish. So whereas the commercial space in the prior plans faced the interior courtyard only, we have now wrapped those around the building so we have storefront on the main street. So when you drive into the site off of 76, it actually feels like a main street with storefront and residential on top of it.
Thank you, Ian. The next image, if you're following, the key plan puts you on the south portion of the site. So what we're looking at is one of the entry conditions to our westernmost buildings. Again, accessibility, visibility, and safety. One of the things that we've made a concerted effort to do is have cohesive architecture through all the program elements. So we do have ground floor parking, but it's integrated into the residential look and feel of the architecture. It's not just open, visible cars parked throughout the site. And then pointing out the consistency of the architectural elements, not trying to overdo it with anything too flashy. This is where we want to bring in that front porch aesthetic with some of the overhang elements you're seeing. This now takes us to the easternmost building cluster, which we are on the south road looking at the west elevation and main entry condition to that first three-story building. Similar principles and the goal of cohesive architecture, so taking cues from the other buildings and applying them to this, but also scaling down the property, scaling down the building, again, with consideration for the neighbors. This image puts us into that central green space just outside of that amenity building. You're looking at a stormwater retention basin with native plantings and landscape just outside of a resident patio. These, again, are our three-story buildings with the walk-up conditions. This is about offering residents connections to the green space, a great place to live with this natural amenity that our client wants to provide. Yes.
Also note that everything, the four buildings on the east are the walk-up condition with integral sidewalks connections to have everything kind of activated towards the center core. All of the units facing the residents on the east do not have walk-up conditions or sidewalks. There'll be the balconies hung for private use, but there's not going to be a lot of circulation, vehicular or pedestrian.
Thank you, Katie. This is showing standing in the central green space, looking at that threshold between what we call the active and passive spaces. So you're looking at that transition to the shorter three-story buildings and then the clubhouse amenity beyond. And here we are facing west, looking at that clubhouse amenity again, looking to encapsulate that rustic Americana front porch experience to create a really attractive community gathering space to bring the residents here together and give them a space to gather. Which then takes us back to our main aerial image where our presentation is ended.
Thank you. Mr. Leon.
So, building E, which is at the northeast, the neighbors to the east of there, I believe that there is an elevation change, a not insignificant elevation change. I have some friends who live back there. I know they have a big hill. Does that elevation change, along with other screening, aid in your privacy efforts so that, I know the resident who talked about balconies overlooking isn't in the same location, but in that area, if you can stay on 2 or 3.
Sorry, did you?
I guess that's fine too. How does that impact? So like, obviously some of the higher stories would be closer to on level with those, but I guess, are you able to speak to, does the 3rd or the 4th floor significantly overlook those homes that are to the east? Is it a story above, or is it basically on par? How does that elevation change impact the screening between those properties and that particular building?
You are correct. There is grade change along the eastern portion of the site. With respect to the biofiltration basin in the center on the far east, that to me suggests a low point without being the civil engineer on the project. We do know that there is grade change. We do have the bases of our building clad in the high quality material. That doesn't necessarily answer your question regarding the visibility, but it is not going to take our 3-story building and make it a 5-story building. I can say that confidently.
Yeah, I think I'll describe it like a developer thinks about it, which is I think the single family homes are going to be a little bit lower in terms of finish grade than the apartment buildings. That's dictated by some of the natural grade with the low point on the wetland that we went through all that. We can't change that. I think the part of the conversation, and it's in your package, but that's been left out a little bit here is, what is in between these backyards and the apartment building? And so when you look at all the, what's there today, there's a fair bit of mature, high quality, it's not all on our property. Some of it's on the neighbor's property. So we're limited in what we can do to take care of that. But as it relates to the high quality, mature plantings that are on our property, we're proposing to take care of them. We're proposing to augment them with, evergreens. Most of the stuff that's out there now is kind of deciduous hardwood. So in the wintertime, obviously you get concerned about they lose their leaves, the privacy element drops a little bit. So that's why our landscaping plan kind of errs towards the evergreen plantings. So I think the way to think of it is if you're in your backyard and you're looking up, you may peer over some of the trees, the existing trees and the new trees, and see the top of an apartment building.
That's what I was getting at in terms of screening. And I think some of the concerns of neighbors where those on the higher levels would be significantly looking down. But I think that grade change, if that's the right term, helps with that screening so that there aren't somebody peering in necessarily.
Yeah, just an additional comment on that. On the engineering plans, there is a section elevation that shows the provided screening.
I tried to find it. Which map were you on?
That's double, 11 by 17 and 14.
Yep.
And that was presented in the PDD.
Yep.
One additional comment that's relevant to this discussion. We've made a concerted effort to coordinate with our civil engineer to get these buildings at grade as much as possible. So again, trying to get these down on grade to create walk-up conditions and then also not putting them up over the neighboring residents.
Thank you. That's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Alderwoman Day.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a few things. I'm going to try not to jump around topics too much. Couple of questions based on some of the comments this evening. I want to talk a little bit about the lighting. And you had mentioned that we could go there if someone had questions. So, and I know we've talked about this before, and I know the plan is in here, but if you could just take a minute to kind of explain, now that you've moved the buildings around a little bit and moved the parking lots out closer, I guess on the south side, the parking lots are a lot closer now to the houses on the south side than they were before. So how has the lighting plan, has it changed at all now that it's moved there? How will the residents on the south side be impacted by the parking lot being closer with the lighting?
Yeah, so just starting with the simple proposition that there is no light bleed outside the property. That's what's detailed in the photometric plan that you guys have. I think if you get out of the technical analysis a little bit, I always like to try to get everybody to think about the people that live in apartments are no different than the people that live in homes when it comes to light shining in their windows. In the same way that somebody that lives in a single family home doesn't want bright lights shining in their window at night, neither does somebody that lives in an apartment want that. So we have to approach the photometrics on any project with that in mind. So when you go to the parking lot, then on the south side, this isn't the pick and save parking lot, right? Where you got 30-foot high poles and big lights. These are all much shorter poles. Everything's lit down. When you get to the interior of the site, we have to have some lighting because there's sidewalks, right? But all of that lighting will be bollards. So, 4-foot high bollards with a little candle on top, just enough to make it safe. Again, that's because we can't have light coming into our residents' houses any more than you would want at your single-family home.
Just an additional comment on lighting. According to the photometric plan, the illumination levels are property line are 0 foot candles. The Unified Development Ordinance allow for 0.8. So it's in compliance with the lighting standards.
And I think, from looking at the redesign here, as far as traffic pattern goes, because I know in previous meetings, there was some concern about light pollution from traffic for some of the amenities that are going on. And from what I can see, if I'm the user of the public amenities here, so the restaurants, the shopping, that kind of thing, I'm going to be entering this space either up near the current road by McDonald's or 76th Street by Harry's. I'm not going to be coming in, over here by the apartments, because there really wouldn't be a reason necessarily to do that unless you're traveling from, that part of town or whatnot. So I think the traffic, noise, volume, light in that area, I think is much reduced now with this new flow that is going on. So I do appreciate that, as well as at the point that you made about the walking paths and the parking on the east side, that there really isn't anything back there, that would be causing light, noise, that kind of pollution. You'll have the balconies, of the apartments that are back there, but it's not like, there's a patio back there or volleyball courts or, things like that that are going to increase the noise or the light for the residents that are on that side. So those changes I really appreciate. If you could talk for a second, because I don't see it on here. I think you removed the band shell. Am I correct in that? Because I don't see it anymore, and I know that it came up tonight, but I remember from a previous meeting you had mentioned that since so many residents were concerned about that it wasn't, a sticking point for the design element of this, and, you had no problem taking it out. I don't see it anymore, so I'm thinking that is now gone.
It's not gone. It's been relocated and minimized. So when you look at the plan where the main street comes in and we have our food truck plaza, what we've done is we've pushed the, I mean, we keep calling it like a band shell or something. It's literally like a 5x5 concrete pad with maybe a covering on it. We've pushed it behind the food trucks and faced it to the northwest. But to your point, Alderwoman Day, if I could rewind Pos General to day one, I probably wouldn't have a band shell on here. I think it's taken on a life of its own that's far disproportionate to the reality of the matter, but we all spent a bunch of time talking about it.
And then two more questions I have. One is on parking and the parking spaces. You had mentioned in the renderings when we were going through that there is some underground parking or covered parking, and then there is all of the street parking. Is, again, and looking for those neighbors on the south, it looks like that there's additional parking in that area. Is there a possibility to potentially lessen some of that for those homes that are right on that south side that are closest to that parking lot? I mean, I know that you're technically under what you need, what your max is already, but I didn't know if there was any wiggle room on the parking piece for the public parking, as I anticipate that's going to be one of the lots that might be used by some of the folks that are there for the restaurants and the food trucks and that type of thing.
I would say from a development standpoint, from just an operational issue, it's tight. So I wouldn't want to lose a bunch of stalls. If it was, and Regalo could talk about how we compare to the counts we have and the PDD and all that. If it was critical path, I would consider dropping some stalls from that southernmost spine if we had to.
Yeah, I was just looking at that last row there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's a sticking point for me. I'm just trying to think of concessions for the neighbors on that side with the parking.
Yeah, it's one sort of variation on that theme that I think would make some sense is if it could be designated as future only if needed upon city approval. Because of course, what I don't want to have happen is, you know, this becomes popular and I'm back in here and you guys are mad at me because I don't have enough parking. So so if there's some way we could maybe set it up such that if I need those additional stalls, I can put them in, I think we'd do that.
And then my last question is regarding the hotel and Harry's. In our packet, it talks about that you're not quite ready to give us kind of the final thoughts on those two spaces. Any idea on the timeline of when those would be coming back to us? And if there's going to be, I know Commissioner Haley brings this up on occasion, that, you know, is it something that we're going to have to do amendments to anything that we approve now if something changes? So just, you know, having this taken so long, you know, I don't want it to be like another year go by because we have to do changes and whatnot. Sorry if I stole your thunder, Commissioner Haley.
Yeah, so Harry's is a tenant of ours. They have the right to occupy the building, and so they're going to be there as long as they'd like under their lease terms. As far as the hospitality, the hotel, we just need to pin down the user. We've represented that it's a boutique hotel of 50 rooms or less with a food and beverage element on it. That's what we intend to do. I'll tell you, all the conversations we've had now are with local operators, no large national branded concepts. So one of those groups has I want to say it's about a 28 key concept with about a 3,000 square foot kind of but essentially it's a bar with light snacks, I would say, on the ground floor. One of the other groups has about 40 keys. The building is the same size, actually. It's just that the group with the smaller number of keys actually has some suite setups, thinking that there's certain events that go on here in Franklin where a 1 week stay might be desirable for some people. So they kind of like that market angle. The building will be the same. The number of keys could change a little. Both operators have the concept of a ground floor food and beverage. Either way, it's permitted under the plan we have now. So I don't foresee any need to come back and change that hotel into a giant, convention center or something like that.
And you're mentioning you have folks that are interested in it, because I know with the hotel on the other side of the street, closer to the baseball stadium, there were some hiccups and roadblocks, due to COVID and whatnot, of some folks saying, yeah, we're coming, and then at the last second, no, we're not coming, and it took a while for that to come to fruition.
Yeah, happy we're not doing this in COVID. I think hotels were the hardest hit in COVID, so I think it's a little bit easier in that. I think the other piece of it is all those conversations were with big national flags. And so the local operators, candidly, they're probably not as financially lucrative as one of the big national flags. But in keeping with the kind of spirit of the project we're trying to create, we felt like that was the better way to go. And so when you get to those national flags, they have loan committees, they have real estate committees. There's, a group of folks sitting in a cube in New York probably that are counting cars every day. The folks we're talking to, they're just folks that know this area. They believe the vision of the project, and they don't have to report to somebody in Manhattan.
Yeah, and my last comment, not a question, is just thank you again for your accommodations and continuing to hold those meetings and listen to residents and make the changes that you can make.
Can I add one? And one other thing, just in reference to all parking in general, we're very sensitive to it also, and we've added extra green belts, the horizontal between the two south bands, and the tree islands throughout. That's above and beyond zoning code requirements, and we've considered access points to those to keep all the traffic as far away from as possible. So just all the sensitivities have been considered in that regard.
Thank you. So I think if there's no other discussion on this particular number 2, we will then entertain a motion, and then we'll continue that pathway until which time we can speak on individual items.
POF General Certified Survey Map. A motion to recommend approval of a certified survey map to combine 3 existing properties bearing tax key numbers 756-9993-012 and 756-993-016 and 756-9993-021 into a single parcel to accommodate the POF General Development located at approximately 7154 South 76th Street.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going on to D as in David, number 3. POS General Minor PDD Amendment, request to amend Plan Development District number 42 to revise landscaping requirements for the POS General Development located approximately 7154 South 76th Street. Tax key numbers 756-993-012, 756-993-016, and 756-993-021. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. The Plan Development District Amendment is specific to the quantity of required landscape features, trees, and shrubs. In a staff interpretation of the Plan Development District, number 42, one of the conditions of approval is that the applicant will need to submit a landscape plan and a site plan. The site plan is the following item that we have on the agenda tonight. And the code requires that site plans needs to be in compliance with the requirement of the Unified Development Ordinance. That includes the required quantity of landscape features, unless it's specified in the Plan Development District. But the minimum quantity is not a standard of the Plan Development District. Therefore, the site plan will need to comply with the requirements of the UDO or the applicant to submit a PDD amendment to change the landscape requirements. So the proposal is you have the ordinance that basically states that the required landscape features should be in compliance with the submitted landscape plan that you have in your packet. So by comparing the proposed landscape features, just the quantity, the landscape plan is deficient compared to the requirements of the ordinance. For example, it's deficient by 481 canopy trees, 112 evergreen trees, and 287 decorative trees. However, the proposal of the applicant has a significant number of trees. I can provide the quantity if you need. For example, the 227 canopy trees and 1,524 shrubs. Plus, the applicant is compliant with the required buffer yards that were established at the time of the Plan Development District. The ordinance requires when development is abutting a different zoning district, in this case, residential, multifamily, and mixed use, single-family residential, require a minimum buffer yard of 30 foot in width. And this is in compliance with that. In some cases, it's over that minimum requirement.
Good.
And the other consideration is that this proposed site plan includes open areas for community gathering as presented by the applicant. Staff have no objection to the Plan Development District amendment. However, I would like to mention that the applicant disagrees with the interpretation that the PDD amendment is required. Applicant can provide more information on that. And also staff recommends that this amendment should be considered as a minor amendment because it's not altering the approved use or the road layout or any other standard that the ordinance define as a major amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Leone.
So question to the city attorney. When we suspended the rules earlier to allow for public comment, that was intended for all three items, but Harry has indicated that he has a comment on this PDD. However, if I were to move to suspend the rules again, it would be for Harry, since he didn't speak. We've heard from other neighbors, residential neighbors. We understand their concerns. What I don't want to do is suspend the rules and have second and third passes. So, Mr. City Attorney, can we suspend the rules to allow Harry to come up and speak and not others present?
Yes.
Okay. Then I move to suspend the rules specifically to allow Harry to speak on agenda item D3.
Second.
Got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Harry, you've got the floor, sir. Name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Harry Gill. I'm the owner of the Harry's Ace Hardware, I should say.
Oh.
I've been in the community for 21 years. It's been an honor and a pleasure serving the community and everything like that. But there are certain issues that have been trying to get solved for over a year in regards to the store itself. Parking structure, the parking spots, and also the ability for the 50-foot semis that come in 2 times a week to our store, back into the back of the building and unload merchandise. I get 2 trucks every week, and I've got other trucks coming in regularly also. As it stands right now, we have no issues at all with the trucks backing into the loading dock and leaving it properly without anybody getting hurt. I've talked to the developer for over a year in regards to the loading dock and the proper procedure on unloading the trucks, okay? Back over here, I see with the new code over here, there's some parking over here for our customer. I've got, my store is 18,000 square feet. And if I'm not mistaken, the law requires me to have at least 50 parking spots for a customer. Summertime, more. Then, when the trucks come in on the side over here, in the back into the loading dock, with all of this project right over here, the parking, all the trees and everything, there's nowhere in the world 50-foot semi will back into our loading dock right now with all of this what's going on right over here. So let's say if he does go in there, how does he back out? Get out of the no way. I need at least 100 feet for that truck to back in, and somehow we got to get somebody over here to open it up so that he can back it up or turn around, get out. As it stands right now, there's all of this, the flowers and the trees and everything like that, and then there's no way in the world, no loading dock. Right now it's perfect. They have no problem at all. Come summertime, all the developing over here, this is all great, it's beautiful and everything like that. What do you think is going to happen to my parking spots when on a Saturday and a Sunday in the spring season when we're very busy? Where are my customers going to park? That's the question. And I haven't gotten any responses over a year. A couple meetings with developers like that. They sent out contractors, and everything, pictures and everything in regards to the loading dock. Nobody has responded. So this right over here, beautiful, like I said, but it's not gonna help me. For me to stay into the community and everything, I gotta be able to do all of that stuff here. Otherwise, I can't. There's no way in the world. And on top of it all, with the construction, everything like that, I'm gambling because I don't know what's gonna happen with the trucks, with dirt, customers be able to come in and park, and come in the building and go out very easy. How are they gonna get out?
So
I don't understand how anybody doesn't figure out.
Well, should we give him an opportunity to answer, Harry? We're going to give Ian an opportunity to answer at this point. Thank you. Full disclosure, I did buy my Weber Genesis grill from you back in March, so you're not getting favorable treatment, but I did buy that there. It's a big, major purchase for me.
Good.
we have I'll take them one at a time. As it relates to the loading dock and the truck access, we've run a truck turn analysis on a box truck showing how it can get in and out. We'll share that with the city. We'll share it with Harry, and he can take a look at it. So we've run the analysis. A truck can get in and out of the loading dock.
But is it on a box truck or a tractor trailer?
Well, we've run both.
Okay.
So obviously
I think
the bigger
Harry's
one.
referencing a tractor trailer.
Right. Then the as it relates to the parking, that's one of the changes that was made to this plan from some of the original concepts where we didn't have as much parking as close to the front door, and so we've added additional parking here that's more readily accessible to them. We own the building, we own the site, we own the land. We have the right to modify the parking. So it's not that we're trying to be obtuse or ignore the issue. We've tried to solve it as best we can, but we do have the right as the landlord to do it. In terms of the construction phasing, we have to be thoughtful about how that phasing works out, obviously. It seems to me there's a pretty clear way where we can phase around Harry's to keep him open and operating. We have not pinned down a phasing plan at this point because candidly, until we get through this meeting on the detailed site plan, we don't really know what we can build, what we can't build. In fact, tonight we were discussing the parking adjacent to Harry's building and whether or not it needed to be more or less. Is there enough landscaping? Not enough landscaping. So in order to create a meaningful, relevant phasing plan, we really need to know whether we're going to build this or not and how we're going to build it. I'm happy to take as a condition of the approval that we'll prepare a phasing plan and share it. We've been collaborative on virtually every element of this project so far, and we wouldn't treat this issue any differently.
Thank you. Harry, you still got the floor? You'd like to finish up the
No,
thought?
like I say, I don't want to be the bad guy. I loved Franklin and everything like that. I love what I'm doing and everything like that. But I'm taking a risk right now with the construction and everything on our site there. I don't know what's going to happen. If I'm going to have customers, are they going to stay away and everything like that? I've got to be able to service my customer the best possible way. I got to have parking spot. I got to have a loading dock. I got to be able to take care of my customers. That's the one thing. As far as the project and everything like that, it's going to be great, but I got to be able to survive. I can't do it the way it is right now.
Thank you, sir. And a motion to go back?
Motion to resume normal order. Did I get that right, Kevin?
Is there a second?
Close.
Fine. Second.
We got a first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are back on normal order. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Haley.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to address the audience briefly. I want to first thank you for coming here. This is what's important. This is your backyard. You need to pay attention. You have a right to have your questions answered and know what's going on. And it wasn't easy for you to show up here. the same time, I also want you to understand that the majority of the people up here on the table, we're citizen volunteers. We live in Franklin. We don't get paid for this. We're here to help review all of this copious information and make recommendations to the council. The council is the one that makes all of the final decisions with the exception of the site plan. Okay? So you're coming here and sharing all of your questions and concerns is very important. What I'd like to tell you is that we have an advantage on you in that as members of this commission, we get an extensive packet. And just about every question that you asked has been answered in this. There was questions about a traffic impact analysis. It's in here in a condensed form. The full report is available online. There was, they did an analysis on sewer and water needs. All of these concerns that you have legitimately have been addressed. And that's why you're seeing affirmative votes coming here, because based on what we're seeing, we think that this is worthy of moving to the council for formal action. So I just want you to understand that. That's what's going on here. It sometimes seems like we're just up here deciding the future. We're not. We can try and steer it in a good way. With that said, I have two brief questions, and we can move on. I heard the question asked whether we're contemplating TIF funding for this. Can somebody tell me yes, no, or maybe?
Yeah, I think the answer is maybe. Again, a little bit like a phasing plan. Until we know what we can build, it's hard to really quantify what it costs. And then once the cost is determined, to figure out whether we would pass the but-for test. Without diving into any nuance about TIF structuring and all that, what I can share with you is I do have TIF experience with Franklin, and it's the TIF experience I have has been very positive for the city of Franklin, as it was for me when we developed Valo Village.
And I would add, if in fact there is TIF funding, it'll be back before this body, the council.
That's a very good point. It's a public, it's an equally public process.
Wanted to feel for where we were at with that one. Okay, and the other one I heard was noise limits. Is it safe to assume that this development will be in compliance with all the UDO ordinances on noise as they exist, as they will be amended in the future? Not 79 decibels, what's currently in the UDO or what is in there through modifications, because I think that's a big fear item that people have out there. And it's a realistic question to ask. So maybe that's for staff. By approving this site plan and this development moving forward, in theory, in the future, they will have to comply with all current ordinances related to noise and sound. And other.
The ordinance in the requirement for site plans does not specifically list a sound study as a requirement for a site plan. However, it says that the plan commission may request additional information.
Yes, and I appreciate that, and that's not what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for further sound. It's just knowing that moving forward, anything that you propose to put out here is going to need to comply with the whole rules for the municipality, not something that was done elsewhere across the street.
Current ordinance.
Current or as modified through the process of the UDO.
Yeah, and
No exceptions, no special exceptions.
in short, we're not asking for any exceptions to any noise ordinance or other applicable law. We fully intend we'll have to comply with those. There's further permitting that will likely have to be done depending on who the users are in here. And similar to the conversation we had about 3 sellers at our Bad Axe project, those folks understand the limitations and what they're obligated by law to do.
Thank you. With that, unless somebody else has other questions, I would make a motion to approve the site plan.
Mr. Leon.
I can defer to Mr. Shago, though.
Mr. Shago.
I'm the new guy. I've only been here for a month, but then I get thrown into this. Poor Gail probably has to go to the chiropractor after delivering all these documents. But I just had a couple questions. Kevin answered some of them, but the first comment for everyone here and for everyone up here, I thought the mayor hit it in the very beginning. This has been a blighted property for a long time, and except for Harry's property. And so it's something that the city has to do something with. The plans kind of remind me of the corners in Brookfield or Drexeltown Square, the same kind of strategy concept. The only difference is those do not have any residential around those properties, around those developments, as close as these folks are going to be. So I think it's something we all need to be sensitive about. We have to do something with that property, yet we have to be sensitive to these folks and where they live. I'm getting in on the tail end of the conversation. I understand the residential, the apartments make the thing financially make sense. I do think there are some regulations, if you do go to TIF, on how much residential, and I'm sure that'll all be brought up again too. But 3, 4-story high buildings within 120 feet of somebody's house is still something to be concerned about. I mean, we have to be sensitive to what these folks have stayed here till 8:30 at night to talk to us about. The only thing that I would bring up for conversation, and I looked at where you've got a traffic study done, with you being surrounded by Milwaukee County roads, 76th Street and Rossner, both Milwaukee County, have they been consulted at all on this?
Yeah, the county's done a preliminary review, approved the recommendations in our report. The final technical approval letter should be coming out literally any day. Dan Murphy at the county's been the one that's primarily been involved in this from day one.
Good, that's important. I mean, with the Rock Complex and that traffic situation, if they would have an event, all these new cars, new apartment dwellers, it could be a real nightmare if we don't get a good situation under control. So I guess that's all I have. Kevin talked about the sound thing. It's a sensitive issue. I mean, everybody's concerned about it. We've heard a lot about it. And that and the light issue to me are important to these people that are so close to this whole development. So that's it for me. Patrick.
Leon.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for comments, Commissioner Shago. One quick comment, if you come here for a TIF request, I will be much more in-depth in my questions and a little bit more conservative. We've talked about that before. But to Mr. Shago's point, it's been mentioned a couple times, this is a blighted property. This is the type of property that TIFs are designed for, so we need to be realistic that it's a maybe, but if it comes, understanding what the purposes of them are. But my question, it goes back to Harry's point about parking. After it's complete and you get into the summer months, and I hesitate to compare to the Rock because I know we don't want to do that. But as you're well aware, some of the stalls at the Rock have had to been marked as just for the businesses around there. So Doghouse, Wheel and Sprocket, and the others. I don't know if that would be the right solution for Harry or something like that, but I would ask you to consider ways for parking stalls around Harry's, especially around the spring through fall. Those are probably the 2 busiest seasons for signage, and I know some people will complain about it, but penalties for those who park there to go to events other than walking into Harry's store to buy a new Weber grill or
Genesis.
Weber Genesis or get my lawnmower or snow thrower in really bad conditions, as Harry was keen to point out to me. But again, really being very deliberate in how the stalls that he needs to get people in and out in the spring and fall, especially signage, penalties, notifications to tenants, businesses, don't park in these stalls. And I'm sure the same would apply to the hotel as well. So
Agreed that at the end of the day, we're going to need some parking signage here. Harry's is certainly the focus, but to your point, there's a hospitality use here. Parking matters. I think the one nice thing I can offer is, as the owner of all of it, most of the on-site traffic is going to be generated by our tenants who are subject to signed leases, and we do enforce those leases with penalties. And we know everybody's name. We have their license plate. We're not trying to be Big Brother, but it is something we pay attention to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, Regular, would you like to read? There's 2 ordinances here, or excuse me, 2 motions?
2 motions.
D3.
A motion to determine the proposed amendment to Plan Development District Number 42 to be a minor amendment.
So moved.
Second. We got a first and a second by Mr. Haley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Motion number 2.
a motion to recommend approval of an ordinance to amend Plan Development District number 42 as it pertains to landscaping requirements for the POF general development.
So moved.
Second.
Got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Moving forward to D as in David, number 4. POS General Site Plan. POS General Site Plan. Request for approval of a site plan for the mixed-use POS General Development located at approximately 7154 South 76th Street. Tax key numbers 756-9993-012, 756-9993-016, and 756-9993-021. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you. Just one clarification on the regulations for plan development districts, PDDs. There are two options for approvals. One is the general approval, where the applicant requests the development standards, permitted uses, maximum height, setbacks, buffers, etc. If that general approval is approved, by the way, by the council, then the second step is the site plan, a detailed site plan. That is what is being presented tonight. The applicant obtained the approval of the PDD back in summer for the development standards, uses, maximum number of units, landscape surface ratio, setbacks, building height, buffering. So what a staff review for this site plan is compliance with the standards that were approved in the PDD number 42. So first, the site intensity calculations is basically like a worksheet, a table that has all the development standards, the units, landscape surface ratio, staff review for compliance with the approved standards, and it's consistent with the ordinance for the PDD number 42. With regards to access and traffic, Plan Commission members mentioned there is a traffic impact analysis that was prepared, and the staff is recommending, as one of the conditions of approval, that the applicant follow the recommendation of the traffic impact analysis. With regards to parking, the Plan Development District set a maximum quantity of parking stalls was 1,103, and the proposed parking stall was 1,080. So it's in compliance with the required, for the maximum parking, and also in compliance with the minimum required parking by the Unified Development Ordinance. I mentioned before the lighting plan that is in compliance with the standard of the UDO. One correction to the original resolution that you have in your packet was provided, a resolution dated today with corrections in red. So there are two corrections to condition number 4, is that the site plan will be valid for 24 months. And the other correction is, can I get the pointer?
Sure.
This area here in this plan is depicting impact to the wetland setback. So the applicant will need to submit a revised site plan removing these impacts, these permanent impacts from the wetland setback, and that is stated in condition number 11. Stormwater management plans that will be subject to review and approval by the engineering department. So the staff recommendation is city development staff recommend approval of the site plan as revised in the resolution that you have in front of you. And I'm happy to answer any additional
Thank you.
questions.
Mr. Leon?
I've asked all the questions I can think of.
Yeah,
tonight.
that's
Yeah.
okay. Any further discussion? Okay, would you please entertain the motion, sir?
Site plan. A motion to approve the site plan for the construction of the mixed-use Bath General Development located at approximately 7154 South 76th Street, subject to the conditions in the draft resolution as revised.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Motion carries at 8:36 PM. I'm sure you do. You probably argued the 10.
That's my bathroom time.
So you're gonna take us off